Good afternoon, and welcome to this episode of the Ad Drop Podcast. I'm your host, Terrence Biggs. It is Wednesday. You know it's time to get smarter. You know him. You love him. El Segundo, California's favorite son. Also, the pride and joy of Cal State Northridge. And the go-to as far as Angels minutia. Also, we're not all three of those jobs. The managing editor of Last Word on College Football, Tony Siracusa. Tony, what's going on, man?
How you doing, T Biggs?
I'm
Hey,
all
by
right,
the
bro.
way, since
Mhm.
since I'm always touting, all the El Segundo stuff, here's a different path. There is someone who taught a class at Cal State Northridge, was a part-time coach at Cal State Northridge, and is in the Cal State Northridge Sports Hall of Fame. Do you know who it is?
What sport?
They were a part-time coach for baseball. Because the coaching job back then, I'm going to give you a hint.
Okay.
It wasn't even called Cal State Northridge back then. It was Valley College of whatever heck the name was. I don't remember now, but it was before it was part of the CSU system,
Ooh.
which came about in the late 70s, mid 70s. So it was before then, and baseball was a part-time job. Coaching baseball was not a full-time job at the school then.
Ooh. Uh, is this person known for life in sports or outside of it?
In sports.
Shoot.
It's going to blow
Oh,
your mind when I tell you, because I can tell the hamster wheel is spinning in your head. By the way, it was LA Valley College. Now that I have a second to think about it, that's what it was called before Cal State Northridge.
I'm drawing a blank, but I'm intrigued.
Dick Enberg.
I almost said that. I
Dick
almost
Enberg
said it.
what Dick Enberg taught a couple of classes on campus, media classes and English classes, was a part-time volunteer baseball coach, and is in the Cal State Northridge Sports Hall of Fame.
One of the things I liked about Dick Enberg was like just his voice. Every word clear and
Was
like you
amazing.
understood everything. Like there was no muddling. Even if you're listening on radio, even if there's static, you still heard every word clearly.
I have two quick Dick Enberg anecdotes. I promise I won't bog us down too much here. One, I met Dick Enberg when I was about, I'm going to say 9 or 10 years old. The Angels used to have a opening day luncheon, and I think it was actually the day before opening day, but before their first home game, um, with all the players there, and it was like a big deal. It was suit and tie kind of thing, and MC for the event, and a meet and greet, and my grandfather got he and I into this luncheon, and they had a couple of angels sitting at all the tables. And I was very excited that third baseman Dave Chalk passed me the pepper for my chicken or whatever. And I met Dick Enberg, and he even signed his autographs. Oh my,
What?
Dick Enberg.
That is awesome.
It was awesome. I still have it. I still have it in a little book of autographs I got from when I was a kid. Um, but the other Enberg anecdote is that when I was a kid, and such a Angels fan, but you're young and you're supposed to go to bed at a certain time, and sadly during the summer, the sun is probably still up while your parents are telling you to go to bed. And I used to sneak a transistor radio into my bed with me so I could listen to Dick Enberg and Don Drysdale calling the Angels games on the radio. And it was great, man. It was huge fun. And but growing up in Southern California, if you think about it, man, we had Vin Scully with the Dodgers. We had Dick Enberg, who not only did the Angels, but did tape broadcasts of UCLA basketball. because the games were not shown live. The UCLA basketball games in the late 60s and early 70s were not on live television. They were shown tape delay at 11 o'clock at night after the KTLA local news at 10 o'clock. And they had Enberg calling the game. He called Rams games as well. We had Chick Hearn, of course, calling the Lakers. We had Ralph Lawler calling the Clippers while they were in San Diego, but the San Diego station would bleed into LA, so you could pick up some of those. Bob Miller calling the Kings games. Man, it was it was epic to be a sports fan in those years in Southern California and be able to listen to those broadcasters.
I mean, it just had to be a time. Also, before we start, happy anniversary.
Oh, thank you.
So
Thank you.
you and the
Thank you. Thank
missus,
you. Yes,
two of my
we
favorite
did.
people in the world.
Oh, that's kind of you.
I always look towards award season because I look at my Facebook. I'm like, I'm waiting for the photo of like this handsome couple every year. Damn it, I know it is
The
winter.
black tie, yeah, the black tie dinners, and she makes me look good when when I go to those things. But yeah, she last Saturday was the 28th anniversary, and as I told her, the it is now too late. She cannot do any exchanges or returns. The receipt has expired. She's now stuck with me going forward. So
And for those who know, she's also one of her recipes ended up in a book. So she's a published one of her recipes for
yes, yeah,
jalapeno
for
cornbread,
she
which I still
that's
have.
right. Uh, wow. All right. Yeah, she did. She wound up published in a uh, Costco cookbook with local cooks in Southern California and whatnot. And her cornbread, jalapeno cornbread recipe made it in there several years ago. Yeah,
It is
definitely.
damn good, and I highly recommend it. It is good. I still have it. I still have it, and it actually made its way to a 3x5 note card.
Nice,
So
nice,
it's
nice,
there for
nice.
posterity. It is
Outstanding.
so I'll always happy anniversary to you and the missus.
It's
Now,
funny because with her being a Southern girl, which she is, she was born and raised in South Carolina. She's a Gamecock. Um, that her grandmother on her dad's side of the family, epic Southern cook. Grandma Burt was her name, Bertha May, Grandma
what?
Burt. And but it was funny because Mitzi would say, I learned to cook by watching her because she couldn't give me any recipes because she didn't cook by recipe. She just knew. She knew how much of this you put in, how much of that you put in. She just she'd been doing it so long. She just knew it. And Mitzi is very much like that now. She just knows how to do this stuff.
It's the ability to eye up a measurement, be able to look and say, okay, I knew this,
Yep.
little of this. I mean, it is the best
Yep.
thing in the world. Now, before we start, there's a Dan Mullen. I gotta tell you a quick Dan Mullen anecdote. So Dan Mullen,
Sure.
the new coach of UNLV, they play Idaho State this Saturday.
Hmm.
There was
Saturday, yeah.
a USA Today report of the most dangerous college towns. Number one being Gainesville, Florida. Coach Mullen
I can believe it.
takes to Twitter, X, or whatever you want to call it, and decides to say, "Come to Las Vegas, a safe college town." Now, Dan's memory is kind of Dan doesn't forget that he was okay with Gainesville when they were shelling out millions to him. And second, Las
Sure.
Vegas is never, ever, ever can be ever construed as a college town.
No, no, it's not. It never will be. Um, Even in the Tarkanian years, it wasn't a college town. It was a UNLV basketball town, but it was not a college sports town. Those are not the same thing. It was a UNLV basketball town. That was it.
Exactly. And people have decided to roast Dan for these efforts, but kind of staying on the offense.
I thought it was funny actually.
I
I
was
was
stunned.
like,
I'm like, what?
you got to be kidding me, man. You got to be kidding me.
Now, when we look at staying on the offensive side of the ball, quarterbacks,
Yeah,
Urban Meyer has named Justin Sayin, and I know that our guy Drew, he gets to
yeah.
use the headline. He gets to
He's
use
just
the
saying. He's just saying. Yeah, Drew Crabtree, our Ohio State writer, has been waiting and waiting and waiting for that announcement. So you could say they're just saying Ohio State has a new quarterback.
Now, with that two-part question, why do you think it took Ryan Day so long? And two, does that show that he doesn't have as much faith in one as the other, or are they this equal?
I think I don't think they were equal. Especially you look at what Sayin did in the spring game. And I mean, he was 17 to 24, had about 200 yards throwing and a touchdown in a spring scrimmage where he was taking maybe half of the snaps. I think as a coach, he left it as a quarterback competition beyond the spring. He could have named Sayin the starter after spring camp, but you don't do that because there's still a transfer portal window at the end of spring camp, and you want to keep both your quarterbacks. You keep them engaged as long as possible, especially with the very real possibility you're going to need two quarterbacks at some point. Saying's going to tweak an ankle or whatever. And you're going to need that second quarterback. Um, but I think that's why he kept it the way he did and kept it close to the vest. I think from a competition standpoint, anybody who saw the spring scrimmage or any of camp, you see saying with just these pinpoint accurate passes. He really has developed well. I mean, last year he had mop up duty. I think he took 27 snaps total last year, threw for like 84 yards. Kept his redshirt year. Um, so I think he was always the guy. I think Urban Meyer was just trying to keep his quarterback room in one piece. And you see a lot of that. I think you see more and more of that. And I think you're going to see more and more offenses use two quarterbacks, not in a way where one guy's got one series, next guy's got another series, but that you've got a number one guy and your second guy, you're going to have some plays for him. You're going to have some packages for him that maybe utilize his skills a little differently. I think, honestly, for probably half of the teams in the country, we're going to see a lot more of that this year.
I agree. I think that Keenholz, plus you mentioned Mappa, he really hasn't, I don't think he's thrown a pass since 2023. So it's been a
Right,
it's been it's been a
right, right.
while. Like he
Well,
played
you
in
get and you get that rhythm. I mean, Ohio State's got Jeremiah Smith, who's the best receiver in the country. Some will say one of the best players, regardless of position in the country. And from everything that we've got from camp, he has this rhythm with Smith. They work well together. Really, that's the complete sentence right there. If you've got your number one guy and your quarterback can get him the ball in the open field, catch him in stride, there, it's done. But again, you keep both guys engaged as long as you can.
plus I think with the Buckeyes, they have I think it was a highly recruited guy named Tavian St. Clair's like the third string,
Yep,
and
correct,
they don't want to rush him along.
correct, correct. Well, and Sayan's a redshirt freshman, so I don't know how you keep everybody in the years to come. But I also now believe that in the system we are in, you don't worry about that because I don't believe you are any longer recruiting a quarterback to be your 4 year guy. You're recruiting him to be there 2 to 3 years. Hope he wins a lot. Hope he does well. Hope he chooses the NFL instead of another team, after his third season. Um, so you are constantly now, whether it's the portal or recruiting for the here and now, and the here and now being no more than 1 year in advance of what you're looking at.
Exactly. That's how it should be now. Speaking of Ohio State, they played Texas. Texas will have Arch Manning. Now, this is another
Yes.
part. Now, let me ask you a question. As someone who has followed the game closer than most
Mhm.
people, is Arch Manning's skill set comparable to the hype surrounding him, or do you think that he still has some room to grow?
I think that there is no skill set that would live up to the hype surrounding him. I think the hype will always win out because it is so overblown. Part of it is because of his last name and the family legacy and the family lineage. And you got three all-world quarterbacks sitting at your Thanksgiving table with you growing up. Um, he was always a good quarterback. Was he a five-star recruit? Really? Um, Maybe. I think more probably a four-star, mid four-star recruit would have been more reality. But again, he's Arch Manning. Who's not going to give him 5 stars, right? You're going to be outcast in the recruiting digital media world if you're the one site who says, nah, he's a mid four. Um, but I think that the offense is going to be a lot more versatile with him than it was with Quinn Ewers. He is more of a running threat than Ewers was. He's got the arm to go downfield. Um, and he's done the work. He's been sitting on, behind the starters for 2 years, waiting his turn. And you and I both know the most popular guy on every football team is the backup quarterback. Because the minute Ewers struggled, the crowd was screaming for Arch. Ewers got hurt, most crowds would be like, oh, our starting quarterback is hurt. Texas fans are like, yes, Arch, bring us Arch. Um, so I look, I think that there are going to be some bumps that have nothing to do with him. The offensive line is a complete makeover for Texas this year. They have one starter returning from last year on the offensive line. So they've had to hit up the portal, and there's that period of this offensive line where he was the backup for 2 years. He's played behind this really good offensive line, and they're all gone. So there's a lot of work that has to go into that. But he's got the athleticism. He's got the receivers. Texas has got some good playmaking receivers. They've got DeAndre Moore, who I really like, and Ryan Wingo. And they got a recruit from Stanford, Mosley. Um, so he's got the talent around him. Not sure he's got the offensive line in front of him. We're going to see. This is going to be, I think that the potential is there for this offense to fit Sarkisian's model more than anything he has had at Texas to this point. I think this offense has the potential because of Manning's ability to tuck and run, the ability to run to have designed quarterback runs. I think this has the ability to have more of the Sarkisian stamp than any other offense he's had yet. The key is going to be that offensive line and how quickly he can mold a whole unit of transfer portal together.
I know they lost, like you said, they lost four of their starters, including
Mm-hmm.
Kelvin Banks Jr., who I thought was, I mean,
Yep.
that's going to be a hard loss, especially with your left tackle. That is going to be
Agreed.
difficult for them. We stay in the SEC. Got to
Mm-hmm.
talk LSU. I
Sure.
I might be one of the few people who I'm not sold on Garrett Nussmeier. There's something about him just for as much arm talent as he does have, the decision making is poor.
Right. I agree with that. I guess here's my thing. I am sold on Garrett Nussmeier. I think I sound really egotistical. I am sold on Garrett Nussmeier for what I believe him to be, not what the hype surrounding him is. Is he a Heisman quarterback? Not right now, not yet. Can he be? Sure. Um, he's coming off a really good year. I mean, he threw for what, 4,000 yards last year and 29 touchdowns and so on. But it's also what was left behind, the inefficiency in the red zone, the lack of being able to complete drives, the 12 interceptions that came, with those touchdowns. He's not, he's not the next Joe Burrow, LSU fans. He's not. He just isn't. The decision making, like you said, can be dicey sometimes, and it costs them. Um, They have, and he's going to be tested early. We talked about the Ohio State Texas game. LSU opens against the best defensive line in college football, Clemson. They are all that. They've got two guys who are going to be all American on one defensive line. I mean, Peter Woods is just, to me, one of the best defensive linemen in the country. And as a line, along with a really good linebacking group, it's probably the best front seven in college football. So he is going to be tested early, that he's got to show a calmness and ownership of the field, of the plays, of the huddle, that he hasn't shown on a consistent basis yet. He's shown spurts of it. But look, I buy into him because I think he's a good quarterback. I'm not sitting here touting him as a great quarterback and a Heisman front runner. If I did that, then I'd say no, I don't buy into him. But it's because I tend to think I've watered down my expectations of him a little bit. That yeah, sure, he can do well. And with an experienced quarterback, which is a prized commodity in college football these days. Starter returning to your team and to your offense. Brian Kelly's got to make the playoffs this year. Has to, absolutely has to. No excuse not to.
If he doesn't, does that turn his seat? Does that make his seat hot, or does that make the administration might want to look for his replacement?
I don't think he's on the hot seat, but I think if he doesn't make the playoffs this year, he starts next year on the hot seat.
Makes sense. Now, I guess we're gonna stay in the SEC. Marcel Reed, I saw him
Mm-hmm.
play against Florida last year. I saw him play a couple of times. It He has an intriguing skill set for Texas A&M, where he has a pretty decent arm, very mobile, loves to tuck it and run it. Can I know he completed 61% of his passes a year ago. Can he become the kind of complete package for the Aggies, or are they going to kind of keep things somewhat rather basic for him?
I, I don't I don't think he becomes the complete package for them. I think because there are things in his game which are problematic. And one of them, to me, look, I'm not a coach, but I've talked to coaches for all these years. One of them is a really hard thing to correct and to fix. His internal clock doesn't work. You look at the turnovers, you go back, you look at the film of this guy, if you're not familiar with his game, you watch how long he holds the ball. And I can tell you, if you were to just make little tally marks on a sheet of paper, there'd be a lot of them for how many times he holds the ball more than 2.3, 2.4, 2.5 seconds. And it then forces him into bad throws. It forces him to run out of desperation, or even take a sack. Look, he's a good running quarterback. He is a very skilled runner on designed plays, but he's not the good runner who can get himself out of trouble when he's held onto the ball too long and the pocket is collapsed in front of him. Right? There are guys who can still make something out of that. Jaden Daniels at LSU when he was at LSU was really good at that. We've yet to see it from Reed. When he has his passing game between the hashes, between the hash marks, he's a good quarterback. But if you flush him out and make him adjust, man, there's just a lot of mistakes. He needs to learn to process things quicker, and not rely on improvising into a big play. Does that make sense? It's I'm improvising and I can pull off 15 yards with my improvisation. No, there's nothing to this point that shows that he can. There's nothing to this point that shows that he has. He's got to get the ball out faster. Has to, has to, has to. If he can make that improvement, then there's a bigger upside. But that is the first thing. when you go back and you watch him play, that is the first thing to me that stands out about him is how long he's taking in the pocket.
It's funny you it's funny you mentioned that when they played Florida last year, it seems as though he did hold the ball. But yes, I mean, if you think about it, if Texas A&M played against a competent pass rush, they would have to be picking
Yeah.
Reed up off the ground instead of
And
him being
and
able to run
and
around
yeah,
make plays.
and there are a lot of good pass rush teams in the SEC. So he's going to have his hands full.
Now, Nico, I am a Liava. We're
Right.
from the Tennessee now of UCLA. It is. Have you? Can you remember in your recent memory of a quarterback that was so highly touted in one location over a 1 or 2 week period, just seemed to have lost whatever type of luster and shine, and then he ends up somewhere else?
Wow. Not sure. That's a tough question. Look, Nico went there with all the hype and the rumors of all the money, a lot of which were proven to be not true. I mean, yeah, he was making good money for a kid who hadn't played a down of college football and who sat his first year. He was getting paid very well to sit. Um, but I think there are a couple of things at play with him. Um, One, he was an okay quarterback, but as I've talked to UCLA fans, as you know, they've questioned me, before he came to camp and oh, how good can this be? Look, y'all, he was the seventh best quarterback in the SEC last year, statistically. Seventh. His stats were comparable with Ethan Garbers, who was the UCLA quarterback last year, who fans couldn't wait to shove out the door. Their stats were actually comparable. Now, can he be better? Can he improve as he gets older? Of course he can. But let's also remember Josh Heupel's offense was designed to highlight Nico. It was designed around Nico. So, you put together, did he leave for money or whatever? He's making less NIL money at UCLA than he did at Tennessee. Um, and that was all he was going to get. If he really did leave for more money, which I think it's a mixed bag, I do think he wanted to go back home to Southern California. I do think there was I don't know if it was homesick, but I think there was some longing to go back home and play in front of more family and whatnot. Whether he really did go to Tennessee with more money demands, I applaud Tennessee for not capitulating to those money demands. Good on you. Make an example for other schools to follow. Um, if he left because, as his dad Nick says, well, we had concerns about the offense. Well, it was your offense. It created it for you, brother. Um, so I tend to believe he really did just want to go home. And you look, I mean, what was it, 3, 4, 5 days after he decided to go back to UCLA? His kid brother Madden leaves Arkansas after having, barely unpacked his bags in his dorm room, and goes to UCLA. I think that was really a part of it. Is it going to be a big boost for UCLA? We don't know what UCLA's offense is going to look like. It was terrible last year under Eric Bieniemy. It was horrible. And it was a bad coaching hire. And I like Eric Bieniemy. Deshaun Foster brought him in as the offensive coordinator on a 1 year deal. And Bieniemy was like, I only want to stay 1 year because then I'm going to try and be back in the NFL. None of that has worked well for him. They went out and got Tino Sunseri from Indiana, who ran a really good offense at Indiana. So we're going to see. UCLA is thin at running back. They have some good receivers, not great, but good. And they've got some depth at the tight end position. So it's a work in progress. Remember, he came in basically at the end of spring camp. So summer workouts and fall camp were his first real on-field movement at UCLA with everybody else in line. So, but again, it sounded great because you'd see UCLA fans, he was a five-star recruit. Come on, man. That was 3 years ago. I don't care anymore that he was a five-star recruit. I barely cared then because you and I both know the recruiting stars are incredibly rigged. A guy is a three-star recruit until he gets an offer from two SEC schools, and all of a sudden he's a five-star recruit because, Mississippi State and Auburn wouldn't be recruiting him if he weren't all that. So I don't care about the stars that he had on his recruiting 3 years ago. I care about what he's done since then. He's a good quarterback with a still untapped upside. And if he closes that gap between where he is and his ceiling, doesn't have to get all the way to the ceiling, but he can have a good offense working with Tino Sunseri at UCLA.
When you mentioned so sorry because I remember him at Pitt. His
Mm-hmm.
dad Sal and his brother Vinny. Vinny is now
That's right.
a defensive coach
That's
at
right.
Florida, and
Florida. Yep.
Sal, was a linebackers coach for name a school. He's had the Raiders,
Exactly.
Georgia, Florida. But
Right.
with Nico, I think you're right. It's like it's almost a wire missing that connects where he is from where he should be. If he
Mm-hmm.
connects that, you can see a much improved version. But if he
Mm-hmm.
doesn't, he's gonna be this version forever. If he doesn't.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good point. If he doesn't, then this is the version we remember, and you start seeing the columns about, listing him among the five-star busts in the last 30 years of college football, that'll be on random blog sites that write things like that. We don't, but others do. It's um so look, he's got an opportunity, and if he it just has his head down doing the work and just operating in a vacuum, and he's got time. Here's a little side part. He's got time because he doesn't have to worry about anything else other than football right now. UCLA is on the quarter system academically. They don't start classes until the last week of September. So he's got 3 to 4 games to get in of just being able to just be a football player and not worry about the other stuff. His summer session is over. He hasn't started the first quarter yet. Um, that's always an interesting transition to me for football players. You get a workout, you start fall camp in August, and school hasn't started. I was over at Wake Forest today, and oh my heck, the traffic because it was move-in day for the freshmen, incoming freshmen, and so all the traffic and school starts next week, and you've got all these football players who have been able to just focus on football, and school starts next week for them, and they got to go to classes. If you're at UCLA, you got a longer period of time because school doesn't start until end of September.
And that definitely helps. Now, you had mentioned being at Wake, and
Yeah.
what is the vibe recently just around the campus like as far as a football team? Like, are the expectations tempered, or are people starting to allow themselves to feel a little bit more about this team?
If they're smart, they're tempered. They really are. I mean, look, it's a totally different vibe in that Jake Dickert is a totally different coach than Dave Clawson. And I'm not saying one's right, one's wrong, one's better than the other. They're just different. Clawson was very professorial about everything. Dickert is a run through the wall, pump everybody up, kind of guy. And the players are buying into that. And the intensity level at practice has stepped up. And a bunch of media people there today because camp ended on Friday of last week. They had some work throughs closed to the media. Today was the first day. of practice getting ready for the season opener. And media was allowed to watch for about 30 minutes. Then we got, you know, politely thrown out and put in a room where we could go work and do other stuff until it was time for the interviews afterwards. And we all thought Dickert was going to name his starting quarterback, either Deshaun Purdy or Robbie Ashford. And so there was a lot of media there, and turns out he's not ready to name the starter yet. He's got a season opener in 9 days, and he made it clear that he will probably tell his team this weekend who the starter is. He'll tell the public via the media on Monday of next week. But and the point is with this, and again, talking about utilizing two quarterbacks, um, neither one of them have owned the position in camp yet, and that's really the problem. Um, Ashford is on his fourth team and his sixth year, transferred from South Carolina last year, excuse me, but was at Auburn prior to that and Oregon prior to that. Um, and he's a good running quarterback. And for Dickert's offense, you have to have a running quarterback. It is necessary. Deshaun Purdy played 1 year under Biff Poggi at UNC Charlotte. Big athletic kid, 6'5", probably 220, but has a three-quarter arm motion, throwing motion. And you just you see some mistakes that come from that. He actually throws better on the move when he's rolling out than he does sitting in the pocket. And you would think a guy who's 6'4", 6'5" can sit in the pocket and be fine. Um, so neither one of them have owned it. And I asked Dickert, what's it going to take? What's missing from you making that decision today versus this weekend? And he said, commanding the team. When we're having a live scrimmage and you make a mistake and you're not running over to the quarterback coach to talk to him, but you're going and talking to your teammates on the sidelines and you're getting everyone together and you're owning the huddle and you're owning the sideline. That's what I'm waiting for one of them to do. Um, so, because they're both making plenty of mistakes. 2 weeks ago in the first fall scrimmage, neither one of them could do anything inside the red zone. At the last fall scrimmage last Friday, they both did much better. But this offense is very effective, short and intermediate game. Neither one of them have shown that they can beat somebody deep, throwing the ball deep. So if you're a Wake Forest fan, there is a new energy. It's a very high energy. It's a good thing you opened the season against Kennesaw State, who, ironically enough, as we previewed, we did a little profile on Tuesday at Last Word on Kennesaw State, and ironically enough, they have two quarterbacks who are competing. One is a redshirt freshman with very little experience and very few stats, kind of like Purdy. The other is a guy who's on his third team in 4 years, so a little bit like Ashford. They only have one offensive lineman returning, starting offensive lineman returning from last year, which is the exact same as what Wake Forest has. So it's could be a long night next Friday night when the season opens in Winston-Salem. So if you're a Wake Forest fan, you like the energy, you like the newness, but I would hold your expectations in check.
There you go. Last topic for your tone. There was an interview recently with former LSU coach Ed Orgeron, and Coach
Right,
Orgeron
right.
mentioned how he thinks it's time to get back into coaching. Do you think he has pretty much two paths? One path is kind of ease into like a group of
Oh, I
five
lost the
school.
audio with you.
Up, can you hear me?
Oh, I got you now.
One path is to take a group of five job, just kind of ease
Mhm.
into it, and one would be to take. Chances are Arkansas will be open because I'm guessing it might be it for our
For
buddy
Sam Pittman, yeah.
Stan Pittman. And if you are Ed Orgeron, which path would you take?
If I'm Ed Orgeron, I take the G5 job and build something and recruit like crazy because Ed is a very intense recruiter. Um, if I what I think Ed Orgeron would do is take the Arkansas job, because it's in the SEC and it's a Power Four school and there's money and there's all those things. Um, and I think that's what Ed is looking for again. So um, I would go the G5 route, but again, while my ego has correctly been labeled as massive, it's not Ed Orgeron massive.
Because I agree with you. I think that going to G5, like he was given $17 million from LSU to go away,
Hmm.
but not coach anymore.
Hmm.
I mean, comes a point where it's like, is it money or just getting back into, going back to a G5 school? Louisiana Tech, perfect. He is a Louisiana
Oh,
guy
absolutely. That would be phenomenal. The crowd
right
would
there.
love him. He would sell tickets. It would be great. But again, sometimes and his buyout has an offset when he got fired. And that offset means that whatever he makes from his next job gets deducted from the money LSU owes him. I think the buyout was due over 5 or maybe 6 years. Um, so if he takes the Arkansas job, which is going to be for a lot more money, it's going to basically wipe out whatever he's getting in his buyout from LSU. If he takes Louisiana Tech or another G5 job, he can coach that, make that money, and still have enough coming in from LSU, because the salary will be a lot lower to G5 schools. So again, to me, it would make sense, but I don't have Ed's ego.
What's coming up on Last Word and how can people interact with you on social media?
Yeah, look, week 0, we got college football games this weekend. So we've got previews of those. We've got a preview of the game in Ireland as well. Farmageddon, Kansas State, Iowa State, um, and so we've got those. We've got looks at a lot of positions as we close out fall camp around the country and start a lot of prep for the first week of the season. So we are busy as can be. Oh, and since we brought up Drew Crabtree, who gets a lot of run on this show, amazingly, uh, Drew has decided as the Ohio State beat reporter for us, what would it look like if Ohio State went the Auburn route and went back and claimed national championships that they didn't necessarily win? Um, what would the Ohio State trophy case look like? That's we've published that today, so that's up there to have some fun and look at.
Last Word is definitely one of the best reads out there. It is phenomenal. Every writer just seemsly like they grasp the game. They get it. They're not writing just to say they're a writer. They're writing because they know the game, and that is a rarity.
I appreciate that, man. We're proud of our staff.
Tone, as always, thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Ad Drop Podcast.
All right, man. Be well.